Hi guys, this is Julia from Just One More Card, and today I have a few coloring tutorials for you featuring Copic markers and chalk pastels. You guys keep asking me about coloring tutorials or tutorials in general, so that's what we're going to do, and we're going to start with these two cards where I used Copic markers. Now these cute fluffy monsters are digital stamps, and they have been designed by the German artist Jessa Feig, and you will find links to these free digital stamps on my blog. And today she is releasing these new stamps, and that's why we have a blog hop, and you can find the links to the rest of the participants of this hop on my blog as well. Now, I've started the coloring already, and you're always begging me to explain what I'm doing, so I'm going to do this for this blue monster. I went in with my second darkest marker, and I just accentuated the parts of the fur. I'm assuming he has fur. That will be the furthest back. If you look at your own hair, and if you don't happen to have a military crew cut, you will see that some parts of your hair are in the front and some are in the back. The hair that is in the back will always be darker because the light doesn't reach it as much. So what I'm doing is I'm starting out with the dark, putting it in where it would be darkest, and then I'm coming in with shades of lighter blue and filling in the space towards the next darkest line, and that will give it the illusion of depth. And lastly, I'm coming in with my lightest marker and going over everything to blend everything together. And you can see that it looks like there's tons and tons and tons of fur on this furry monster, and then it looks really well, real. At least I hope it does. After I was done coloring, I used the Stitched Banner Duo by Pretty Pink Posh, specifically this square piece, to cut an opening into a panel. And then I'm using some German sentiment stamps, which I got from the company Dani Pois. I will link to it in the video description below and on my blog. And they have really amazing German sentiments, and I wanted to use more German sentiments this year. And before I adhere everything down, this is my card base, and I'm taking a few Copic markers and just create a gradient here. This is Simon Says Stamp Ultra Heavy cardstock, and it doesn't bleed through, and I'm just doing this where my opening's going to be. So I put a lot of foam tape behind this panel, and now I'm adhering this, so I will have the yellow gradient or the orange gradient through this opening, and then I can put my little monster in there. I put some foam adhesive behind him, and you can see I added some white dots just to add a little bit of interest to him, and now he's peeking out from this opening. Of course, I have to have some sequins by Pretty Pink Posh, which I'm adhering with my glossy accents and my tweezers. Now I will show you how to do this coloring process again on the red monster after I've shown you some close-ups of this card. And I will not talk you through the process on the red monster because it's exactly the same, so I'm going to play some music for you, but I will catch you again on the flip side so we can talk how I put that card together, and then I will show you how to do some coloring with chalk pastels. As I said, this video is going to be a little bit longer, but I hope that you will appreciate that I didn't cut anything out. I wanted you to see the entire process because I sometimes get frustrated when there's a huge jump from one stage of the coloring to the next, and I don't understand how the artist got there. So firstly, I finished up this card. You can see I've also added some dots with a glaze pen. They're really nice and rich and black, and they really add some additional interest to this little critter, and here's a close-up of him. Now we're going to do the coloring for the red monster, and I'm going to play some music for you. saw, the process was exactly the same. And now I'm grabbing my white gel pen. Again, this is the Signo white gel pen. And I'm just adding a few dots into the darkest areas of his fur for some interest. And then I'm grabbing a Jelly Roll white gel pen. This one has a finer tip, that's why I'm using this. And adding a few scribbled, crossed lines so it looks as if the monster is sparkling. It's really just an optical illusion. I added a drawn line so he stands on a small hill, and into the panel I die cut the shape of a speech bubble through which I'm now stamping the sentiment directly onto my card base. I've only temporarily adhered this panel down with some painter's tape so I know where to stamp the sentiment. Again, I put some foam tape behind this panel and now I'm just lining it up, trying to make sure I have even edges on each side, which is something I sometimes have trouble with. So there we are. I kept both of these cards very clean and simple because I wanted this fluffy monster to have center stage and I didn't want anything else to distract from this little guy. And you can see you can color him any way you like, whatever is your favorite color. And I really like the effect that these scribbled stars give him. It really looks like he's all sparkling. A magical monster. See, monsters don't have to be, scary and bad. They can be amazing. Oh, and the German sentiment says, you're absolutely crazy or you're absolutely nuts, but in a very kind and loving way. So nobody needs to be offended when they get the card. Now on to the next coloring project. This is also a new Digi stamps by Useless Trinkets, and I'm using my chalk pastels by Stabilo. Stabilo has kindly sent these to me to try out, and it took me quite a while to get around to do this, and I wish I had done it sooner because I really like this. I have the 60-piece pack. It comes with an eraser, a paper stump, and something to sharpen your pens. I'll remember that at some point. So, as the name implies, these are pencils that are made out of chalk, or at least the lead or the color in the pencil is made out of chalk, which means you can color on craft cardstock and it looks really amazing. It's a little bit like Prismacolor or Polychromos pencils, but where the Polychromos and Prismacolor pencils, they are oil or wax based, and this is really chalk, which means that you have like a lot of tiny little pieces of chalk on your on whatever you're coloring, so you have to be careful not to go over it with your hand while you're working because you will smear it. I am just a beginner with this medium, but what I found to be very helpful is I usually like to put down one coat of light color first, just to have a foundation, and then you can go in with your darker colors and put those down and then come back into it with your lighter colors and mix colors, lighten them up, blend them. So that works really nice. And you can see here I'm blending directly with my lighter color into the darker color. Now I'm coming in with the mid-tone and blending that in directly. And I feel that I have the best results when I work in layers. Now when I use the paper stump, it's not wet. I'm not putting any solution on this, and I'm trying to be very careful because I don't want to tear the paper, because I guess it depends on which paper you use, but you're working the paper quite a bit, especially when you put on a lot of layers. And I like to put on a lot of layers because it intensifies the color, or in this case here makes it much lighter than it normally is. I know her face looks really dark right now, but don't worry, it's going to be completely fine. If you're doing larger paintings or coloring larger images, you can also use your fingers to blend these. Our artists do that. I've seen them do this in YouTube videos, so there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do that. Now for her hair, I'm just trying to get a base coat down of color. So I started with my lightest gray, and then I'm going in with the darkest and then blending out towards the lightest. And when you see those little crumbs of chalk disappear mysteriously from time to time, I'm not cutting anything out. That's just me blowing that away from the side. So you can see here I'm applying layer after layer, blending these colors together, and I found that once you have enough color down, it's getting really easy to blend these colors together. And what I like about this very much is if you have a very light color like a white or a very light gray, as you saw me do here, you can easily add highlights into this. So even if you accidentally made something too dark, you can go back in and add highlights. And I absolutely love that because I sometimes don't plan ahead. Or maybe I'm just not good enough, which is totally possible. So This is me doing the same thing again here, put down just a little bit of color in the darkest areas, and as I'm coloring with my lighter color, I'm covering up whatever is underneath, but that doesn't matter because I know I will go back in and add more layers. My main goal here is to cover up the craft because her hair is black and I don't want any of the craft to show through. You can see me here going back in with the white and adding highlights, and it gives the hair a really nice structure. Now for the folds in her dress. This is the only way I know how to do folds. I learned this from the coloring class KIT CLOWDER. It's actually a Copics class that I took, but you can apply this to any coloring medium, as you can see here. And I started out with the darkest color because that's how I learned it, and that's how my brain makes sense of this. But now I'm going over everything with the lightest color, and then I come back with the darker colors and gradually building up my layers here. And you can see that slowly I'm getting to the point where it looks as if her dress has folds. And it's important to leave space for the highlights here, because otherwise that illusion won't work. You need spaces that are really light in color. And I will even come back later on and add white just to make this effect even stronger. And I'm just really amazed at how well you can blend these colors once you've put them down. Now, so wait a second, I'm smoothing everything out here, and I think then I will come in with my white exactly right here just to increase the effect, and I will also blend this out a little bit. Now, the only downside that I feel these pencils have, or this medium has, because these pencils, like, they are chalks, so they don't stay, like, you can sharpen them, but they don't stay sharpened long. Like, basically as soon as you make a few strokes, you don't have a sharp tip anymore. And so coloring very fine details might be difficult. At least it's difficult for me at this time. As you can see me here coming back with the white, adding highlights. As I mentioned before, this is really amazing with this medium. So as you can see here, I sharpened my my black, and I was able to add like some detail here, but you have to be careful. Like, very detailed images, you might have trouble working with them. Now, I don't want the chalk to move when I work with this panel here, so I sprayed it with hairspray. Very generously. I let it dry, and then I'm not rubbing over it to test it, but if you just casually touch it or run your hand over it, it will not smear. Whereas if you don't do anything with the finished piece, like just leave it as is, it will smear. And these chalks run when you put water on them, so you want to be careful. Like, if you want to spritz it with water, this will activate the colors and they will run, so just be aware of that. I thought I was finished, but then I decided to grab my white gel pen and outline this image with my white Signo gel pen. I could have left it as is, but I just felt that the white border just made the image pop so much more. It almost looks like a sticker. And I like that. Also, I could cover up like the tiny little bits of pieces of color that I colored outside the lines and forgot to erase. So here I am, all done with my card. That was an introduction to coloring with chalk pastels. I hope I will get the chance to do some more videos on this in the future, because I really like this medium. It's very different from the Prismacolors and Polychromos, very different from the Copics, of course, or watercolor, and you can color on craft beautifully. So I'm really enjoying this because you get an effect that you might not otherwise get. So I've had a lot of fun with this. As I said, these are free digital stamps released by Useless Trinkets. You can find the links to the stamps in the video description below and on my blog. If you've enjoyed this video, I would love to hear from you, and I would love if you would subscribe. I have some amazing stuff come up, and I think you won't regret this. Thank you so much for watching, and catch you again soon. Bye bye!